Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of our 3ds Max tutorial series. My name is Arnold Falle and today we're going to turn those 2D shapes that we have created in our last tutorial, we're going to turn them into 3D geometry. So let's get started. Again, just like in our last tutorial, we're going to do most of our stuff here in top view, so that's why I'm going to maximize my top view, and I'm also going to turn off the background grid so it's not going to distract you. So the first thing when we turn 2D geometry into 3D geometry is something that is rather disappointing. So if I have, and I'm here in create geometry, and I'm going to create a couple of shapes, no matter what shape they are. So here's the just like the last time, maybe a line as well. So here's a couple lines. And what is a little disappointing is when we have 2D lines and we're going to render them, and I quickly press the render button and I'm rendering the image, you will see that the 2D geometry is not visible. So in renderings, by default, 2D geometry is not visible. That doesn't matter if it's shapes that are created in 3ds Max or if the shapes are imported from any other program, for example, AutoCAD. My favorite program to import the shapes is AutoCAD because it works really well hand in hand with 3ds Max. All the positions, the scale just works perfect. I have created a quick floor plan. It's a really simple one. And it's a 2D floor plan in AutoCAD, and I'll just show you how that could be imported into 3ds Max. So here we are. Let me quickly delete the shapes that I did here because I don't know what size they are, and I'm going to import the CAD drawing. So I did just save the AutoCAD file as a DWG file called floor plan, and now I'm opening it. There is two major ways to import the AutoCAD file. What I use the most is entity. That basically means every shape in AutoCAD will become a shape in 3ds Max. So I get lots of objects there. Or if I have organized my shapes already by layer, I can also use layer, for example. Then I have shapes that are already organized by layers. So let's do this quickly by entity first. We can always come back and do it by layer. So here's my floor plan, and I'm going to put it into a three-dimensional perspective view. And you can see I have lots of two-dimensional lines, 2D lines, and those lines, of course, they can be moved. And every object in 3ds Max, and you can also be moved back, and with object snap, every object from AutoCAD became an object in 3ds Max. So the first thing to make lines, and let me also include some other lines. Here's a line, here's a circle, here's a rectangle, and so on and so on. Those lines, and let me do it one more time. If I hit the render button, you see it renders invisible, so the lines do not render. There is a few ways to make lines renderable. So if you want to use them, for example, as wires or as lines on the ground or some shapes on the wall or whatever, you can make them renderable. And let's start with the front one here. I'm going to take this one. There's several methods to do this. The first one is you select the line, then go to modify. And we know that every editable spline from the last, if you haven't watched the last episode, make sure you do that. It has all the information about the different sub-levels here. This line can also be made renderable. Up here in modify, the very top is rendering. And you can choose whether it's renderable in the renderer or also in the viewport. So either you see it also here in the viewport when you click on both. But what it basically does, and let me zoom in, it basically turns the line into a 3D geometry by giving it a certain thickness. And you have two choices. You can have a circular, a radial thickness or a rectangular thickness. So it creates a small wall just to make it renderable. So if we just want to see it, for example, use it as a wire and so on, we can use a certain thickness. In this case, it's it's 2.5 centimeters because I have imported the file, and that's in meters. And you can also choose how many sides we have. So let's zoom in, because every shape here, and let me show it to you in a shaded view with edges, it has 12 sides. If you want to make sure you don't use too much geometry, it is plenty. It's good enough to use 6 sides, because you'll never get this close as we are right now, because we want to just make the lines renderable. So basically we just look from the top, for example, and when you hit render, it will always render in the thickness, and you do not see whether if it's 6 sides or 12 sides, and that is half the geometry by not using 12 sides and just 6. Or if you want to have sharp edges, you can as well use rectangular. Okay, that is the first way to turn a line renderable. I'm going to turn it off because I want to show you another way. The next way to do it, and I'm going to do it with the same line here, is not by choosing renderable here, but by using a modifier on top. And I know this is a concept that we haven't used a lot, but you can place modifiers on top of your object. So when you select an object, you see inside this list, right now we only have the object itself, an editable spline. But you can place a modifier on top of it, and the modifier comes here in the modifier list. I know it only works every second time. And in the list, the modifier you're looking for is called Renderable Spline. Here, Renderable Spline. So what it does, it turns the line that you have used into a renderable spline. So basically the same thing enable in renderer and in viewport and so on. It has the same parameters, radial, you can choose the thickness, 0.02 I think was the one before. You can choose how many sides, 6, and so on and so on. So the big advantage from this renderable spline to the one where we actually do it here in the settings is that those modifiers can anytime be turned invisible. So right now when I render, it is rendered visible, and when I turn the modifier off, it's not visible in the rendering. So that is one advantage. Another advantage is you can not only turn it visible or invisible, but you can also remove it if you don't want it quickly. And this modifier can be copy-pasted from one object to another. So if I have my settings made for this one modifier, you just make a right-click on the modifier and choose Copy. And now it's you copied the modifier, and then you select any other object. Just click here and choose Paste. Not only can you paste the modifier as a copy, but you can also use Paste Instanced. That means it's an instanced copy. When you change the original, it will also change the copy. So let's do this quickly. Instance copies, by the way, can be recognized with an italic font. So here the first one is now also italic because it's linked together. So it doesn't matter if I select the copy or the original. If I change it, for example, make it thicker, of course, both elements will change. So that is a good way. If I have applied it to more than one object, I can can do this. If for some reason you only want to change this one, you can anytime take the modifier. Remember, when you turn it off, also turns off all the others. And here you can turn it, or you can make it unique. So this one here with the modifier on it, it's still italic right now, but when I hit make unique, it will remove the italic, and now this one is unique. And if I change the thickness there, the other one will not follow or will not get the same thickness. Okay, so that is a couple of advantages. Modifiers can be copy-pasted, they can be removed, they can be turned on, and so on. And if you want the line not to only be radial or rectangular, you can also use a third way to do it, and that is by placing another modifier, not the renderable spline modifier, but a modifier that's called sweep. And with the sweep modifier, P, Q, further down, sweep, no, further down, here it is. What is this? The sweep modifier now not only has rectangular and circular, rectangular and radial profiles, but all kinds of different profiles. You can use either the built-in section. So here's a list of all the possible shapes that you can use. For example, I want a I don't know which one, the wide flange, and with the wide flange on, you have certain parameters, and you can just let's do this: length of 0.1, a width of 0.1, a thickness of 0.02, and a corner radius also 0.02. So with this, I now have a steel profile that is now my line turned into a profile. Not only can you use, and this you can of course use this for any shape that you have. For example, here is here's a line that is drawn. By the way, the line I'm going to turn adaptive so it's nice and smooth. And now, not only can you use a ready-made shape in the sweep modifier, but you can also draw your own. So here's my own shape. So let's do this shape here. By the way, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, to close a shape, to make sure it's really closed, you just have to click with the end point on the starting point, and it will ask you want to close the spline, and you can say yes. So I'm going to use this line and give it a sweep modifier. So under modify, you go to sweep modifier. Only this time we're not going to use one of the ready-made built-in sections, but I'm going to use my own custom section, and here's pick, and I click on this little shape there. And you can also rotate it if you need to, see, or the alignment, make it different, and so on. If you want banking, that means in the curve, so we'll turn the curve, and so on. And here's my simple shape. So here you can see it. It has just used my shape there to create a 3D geometry out of the path. Good. So that is the sweep modifier. Let me remove the sweep modifier from this piece here as well. So that was a very simple way just to make lines renderable, give them a certain shape. For wires, for small objects, it's all fine to do it. Now we're going to do a few more things which are a little bit more practical. And the first thing is we are going to repeat once again what's the difference between a closed and an open polyline. So when I use a regular line tool, and again I'm looking from the top and draw a few things here. So if I use a line tool and I draw any shape, if I click with the last vertex onto the starting point, it will ask me, do you want to close? Yes. That is the best way, of course, because now I have a closed polyline. And for the next step, closed polylines are really important. So if I do the same thing one more time, and this time I click on it and I say no, then it expects me to continue with the line, but if I hit escape, it will stop, but it's not closed, it just looks closed. So how can I check if a polyline is really closed or not? Select it, go to modify, and check out the spline level, because in the spline level you can select the spline and it will tell you this is spline number 1 and it's closed. Okay, let's do the same thing here. If I select it, go into spline level, select the spline, and it will say this is spline number 1 and it's open. So if this is the case, you want to make sure that you close it. How can I find where is it open? Probably the best way to do so, I don't know if you can see it, but you can see it. When you zoom in, you can see right away this is the point actually where it's open. If I would close it now, there's a button, by the way, close here somewhere. We'll see it when we are in spline level. So there is a close button. Here it is. But what it does when you hit the close button, it closes it from the last point to the starting point. So it will create a connection here, and this is it's a loop there, and it's self-intersecting, and this is something that you want to avoid at all costs. So if you have this whole spline here and you want to close it, I would suggest that you delete the last segment. So you select the last segment, hit delete, And now you go into spline level, check again, of course now it's open because you see there's a big gap, and now you hit close. And now what it does, it creates a new last segment and closes it. So hit close, and there it is, it creates a new segment. You could also do the same thing that I've shown you in our last video, and that is, let me do it again. Delete this one segment, go into vertex level and choose connect. With connect you can create, click and drag onto here. It creates automatically the last section and will weld it together, and now if you check it you'll see it's closed. Okay, so that is closing it manual. That's a lot of work, and that's why when you create shapes in a different program, for example here in a CAD program, you always have to make sure that your lines that you use for the walls or the windows, that they're really closed polylines. So the things that the program doesn't like is polylines that are not closed. There's another thing that Max doesn't like, and I'm going to show you later what the effect is. If the polyline is closed, and I'm doing it really so that you see the difference, if the polyline is self-intersecting. So I just said closed, yes. So it is also a closed polyline, but it won't work for the purposes that we are doing, because it is self-intersecting. And the difference of a self-intersecting polyline and a closed non-intersecting polyline is that you cannot define where is inside and where is outside. So when it's closed polyline, there's, of course, there's inside here and there's outside there. But once you here actually, and when you walk on this line, there is inside is on one side, and that suddenly here at this point jumps, and suddenly inside is on the other side. So it kind of doesn't know how to fill it into a solid geometry. So that's why this one will not work for the next steps. So let's leave it there, and I'll show you what the next steps are. The next steps are a modifier that helps you to turn, and I'm gonna go into an axonometric view, to turn a closed polyline, I'm going to do it with this one, into a solid object. Very simple. You select your closed polyline. Doesn't matter if it's an imported one or a one that you drew in 3D Studio, and you give it a modifier, and the modifier is called Extrude. And when you give it an Extrude modifier, it already looks a little bit more solid than before. All you need to do is change the amount of extrusion. In this case, it's 0.5 meter, so 0.5 is 0.5 meter. And that will turn the former line into a solid object. Extrude means it is giving it a height in its local C coordinate. So if it's a positive height, then the object has a positive height, and when you go back down, it can also have a negative height, then it's going down. So let's do 0. And when it has 0, then actually this is something that you want to avoid, because it's a really flat object, and it can give, in some render engine, give you problems when you render it. So make sure Extrude at least has a certain height and not 0. Okay, so that will be Extrude. Here's one more thing here. Select it, then choose the Extrude modifier, and you see when I do it again, it remembers the height from the last extrusion and makes it automatically 0.5. If I don't want this, I can change it anytime. Okay, then the last thing, and I'm going to do it here with my self-intersecting polyline, just to show you how a result looks with a self-intersecting polyline. And I select it and choose the same Extrude modifier, and you can see, instead of creating a solid object, what it does, it creates a wall only. So it's not able to cap it into a solid object. Also, the outside here is green, and here's also green, but you can also see that the inside is somehow black. That is has not to do with lighting, because here it's also not black. Black means I see the back side of the face, and when you render it, the back side of faces usually don't render. Oh, it's hard to tell now. In this case, Arnold also renders them, but not to a solid object. So I rotate it slightly, and you can see, of course, you can see through here because it's just a little wall. Good. That's something you want to avoid, simply not create self-intersecting polylines. Another thing is the modifier extrude can of course also be turned on and off. It can be adjusted, the value later on. And if you need to change the line itself in this modifier stack, you can always go back to line. See, then the extrude will be turned invisible for the moment. And you can, in line, you can choose whatever, for example, let's turn this into a smooth corner here. Don't forget, oh yes, important. Don't forget to get out here again and up to extrude. And now my object has a smooth curve there. So in the modifier stack, later on you will have 2, 3, 4, a lot of objects stacked up here. You can anytime go back to the line. Not all modifiers allow you to go back, but extrude is one that where you can do that quite successfully. Okay, so close polylines, you check if they're really closed. I show you how to close them with the close button or by hand by deleting the last segment, and make sure they're not self-intersecting. The next thing is when you want to extrude two objects, and let me delete the modifier one more time. So here's the extrude modifier, and you can delete it, and now it's again a simple line. Also the second one, line that has been extruded, and delete the modifier. If you want to extrude more than one object at the same time, I do not recommend you to select both objects, both lines, and now give it an extrude modifier. It works. So I can give it an extrude modifier. Of course, they can only have the same height, but you see it already. The extrude is written in italic. So when I select one of them, and it's a line that is extruded, when I change the modifier, it also changes the other one. So it's just like a instanced copy of the modifier. The better solution is, let's remove it, select and remove the modifier one more time. The better solution, if those objects somehow belong together and they will be extruded together, then it's better to select the lines and attach them into one object. So select the first line, attach, and attach the second one. Now it's one object, one color, and it also can be extruded in one go. So one here. Okay, so that is something that you need to do. Let's go back to my floor plan here, and all the objects that are red in this case would be wall objects, and you can see by importing them per entity, that means every shape from AutoCAD became a shape in 3D Studio. They are all separate shapes. So if I want to extrude them somehow together, I would need to start with one, choose attach, and then click on the red ones that you want to attach. So let's quickly do this. It would be better in a different way. I'll show you in a minute. So now all the red ones are together. I turned attach off by right mouse clicked. And now, for example, I can take this all closed polylines and give it an extrude modifier and extrude it into a floor plan. Let's say that's, I know it's a really small apartment, 2.5 meters. So here's the walls, all extruded to 2.5 meters. I'm going to show you the same thing one more time. So let me go to File and Reset, or I could also delete everything. And I'm going to import it one more time. So import and, oh no, here's the floor plan. And this time I'm not going to import it as entity, but as layer. That means everything that is on the same layer will be imported as one object. So it will derive the AutoCAD primitives by layer. And I hit OK. And I have organized the floor plan. So the walls are, if I select it now, see, it's all attached together. We know we can anytime detach it. Also, the green ones, which are the windows, are detached, and the doors are also detached there. So let's quickly turn this into a floor plan. I'm going to do it here in this perspective view and turn it into a simple floor plan. It's not, of course, not the best way to create a floor plan like this. I would do that in Revit or Archicad. But it's a kind of workaround, and it's a really nice geometry once you have it in Max. So I select the walls, give them a modifier, and then give them an extrude modifier. And let's extrude it to 2.5 meters. Of course, you can type in whatever height you want. So that is our solid walls. The next thing is our doors, and basically the doors, I'm just going to create holes as doors. So what I'm going to do is I select my door object. I called the layer door, so it's called layer door here as well. And I'm going to move it to 2.5 meter height. So now the doors are up there, and let's make my doors 2.2 meters in height. So I have remaining of 30 centimeters. So I'm going to extrude them to minus 0.3. That would be the remaining holes are the doors. And now we have our walls, we have our windows here. And the windows, first I'm going to extrude to 1 meter height. So that is below the window. And now I'm going to use I'm going to clone it by using, I'm going to clone them by using the object snap. Just move it up here, and from the top down again minus 0.3 instead of 1. And here is my walls with windows. Of course it looks strange because we got red, green and yellow, but if I select all three of them and give them a color together, you won't notice where the parts came from. When you render it, it's not going to show you the gaps there. So when the geometry is nicely done, this is perfect to create a simple floor plan. Just another object for the floor maybe, and we're ready to put some furniture in and so on, and maybe some doors that you have already. Of course, doors, they will come in other programs like Revit, they include the doors. But that is a really fast way to get the geometry. Good. That is so much for the extrude modifier, I guess. I want to show you one thing, and that is, let's say I would like to adjust parts of my floor plan. I'm going to look from the top down, and you remember, let's say this is the bathroom here, and I need a thick wall there, not a 10 centimeter wall, a little bit more. It's already extruded, but I can still edit it because it is an editable spline that has been extruded. So from the top down, I'm going to hit go back in the stack to the editable spline, and now, for example, in segment level, I can select it and just move it down. I can also select in vertex level. Let's say I select this vertex. Something I haven't shown you here is a button called fillet, and that basically allows you to round this corner without using a Bezier point, because rounding creates 2 points, and the two lines perfectly stay the same. So here we are. Let's get out of the vertex level and back into the extrusion, and here's my change. So the lines, they stay editable by simply going back in the stack. Or let's say I need a thicker wall here at this piece. Select, go back to spline, select this wall, make it thicker, and here we are with the larger column there. Okay, so you're perfect, you can perfectly edit it and so on. But of course, I could anytime go back into my CAD file and do the same thing here. So, edit this or add a fillet there and so on. Much better. You can work to scale, and the CAD program, of course, cannot substitute what we did here in Max. Good. So editing is always possible when it is already extruded. Let's get to the next step, and that is another modifier that works pretty much the same as extrude with a little twist. Not a twist, but a little difference. And that is, let's quickly take a rectangle here, and we could use extrude on the rectangle, but the next modifier I'm going to show you is called bevel. And you go select the rectangle, go to modify, and find the modifier bevel. Not bevel profile, bevel. So Bevel does the same thing. It extrudes, but in different levels or different segments. And here it says bevel values. And I'm not going to start with the outline here. I'm going to start with the first height, and I'm going to zoom in here. The first height, 0.5 meter, no outline. Then level 2, again 0.5 meter. This time I'm going to make it smaller. And maybe level 3 will be going out again. So you only have 3 levels. If you need more than that, you're probably more in the area of poly modeling, and this is where I'm going to show you how to have more levels like this. But for here right now, we can create a simple level. You may ask yourself, what is this good? What kind of geometry can I create? Here are 2 things that are quite handy with this modifier. The first thing is when you are creating a large scale model. Okay, let's say this is the size of my building, and here is the outline of 2 or 3 neighboring buildings. So here they are the neighbors. You can use the bevel modifier at those outline of the neighboring buildings. Just give them a bevel modifier. This is just the same things as before. And now you define the first height, which is the height of the ground floor. Let's make it 4 meters. Okay, this is 2.5. Let's make it 3 meters. So it's about the same size. And the first level and the second level then will be another 3 meters. And I'm going to use the outline to minus and pull it all the way down there. And here, what it does, it creates a roof for you. So you can create a single low resolution, low level of detail house just by simply using the bevel modifier. So, and the good thing is when you when you adjusted the modifier once to like the height of the roof and the building, you can anytime select your next rectangle, find the bevel modifier, and it remembers the settings from before. And here's the last one, and bevel. Bevel. So you see something, and I'm already getting annoyed by that. At least when I don't know my program, suddenly when I click on the modifier list, it first makes the modifier pops up to the top, and when I click a second time, it pops up to the bottom, and I can pick actually from the alphabetic list. That is really annoying because I need one extra click for everything. So when you need a lot of you need the bevel modifier all the time, or the extrude. There's a certain set of modifiers that you need all the time, and that's why you can, down here is something that's called configure modifier sets. And when you click on configure modifier sets, you can choose some pre-configured ones, which makes no sense because I want to have my own. I want to make sure that bevel and extrude is in it, and maybe what else did we do? Maybe the renderable spline, everything we did so far. So I'm going to use show buttons, and that shows 2 by 4 buttons here in the top. And now once they are shown, I can again click on this thing here, and I can choose configure modifier sets. So here's a pop-up window. First, I can choose how many buttons do I have. I want, let's say, 4. And now I can just select a modifier from the left side. For example, I want the extrude here. I want the bevel there. And below that, I want the renderable spline, and the renderable spline, here it is. And what else did we do? Yeah, sweep. It's also here somewhere, sweep. Okay, so these are the 4 modifiers, and when I hit OK, I now have my 4 modifiers ready. So whenever I have a spline here, so let's go for a circle, select the spline, in modify, and now I have my modifiers ready. So now I can anytime extrude my circle, for example. So that is much simpler when you need them and as long as you have like 4 modifiers or maybe 5, maybe 6, it doesn't use a lot of space. And if you need another modifier, you just go down into the list, and then you have to click 2 times. I don't know why that happens, that you have to click 2 times. Good. So that is the bevel modifier. You know, that is good for the neighboring houses. Of course, if you need some special geometry that has a shape like this, you can use the bevel modifier. And the next thing that is quite handy when you create text. For example, let me create a text on my house here, and I want the text to be 3-dimensional. So, so here is my text. To create a text, there is different tools. There's one text tool in shapes, and then there is a text which is called text plus in geometry. So there's an extra tool that already creates 3-dimensional text elements. But we want to use the bevel modifier. So let's go first here with the shape text. And with the shape text, you can type in whatever text you want. Let's call it, we want to use there's a bar, and we want to put a sign bar on top here. The size, that is in meters, so the size of the letters is much too big. So I want maybe 40 centimeters is big enough. There it is. No, that's not big enough. You can anytime select it and make it 1. So that is 1 meter. So the B is, I guess, is 1 meter tall. And here is my element. So this element, of course, will be rotated 90 degrees. I could have created it right on the wall there. And later on, I'm going to move it, of course, so that it's on the wall. Okay, I'll show you right away. 2 ways to get the bar letters right here on the wall. The first one is, if I look from the top, it's this wall that I want to place it right next to the entrance. I could look from the front. So if I go into a front view and now create a piece of text, I'm going to do it up here. It still says bar with 1 meter. So if I do it here, it will automatically create the bar text in this way. And when I, for example, extrude it, it will also extrude in the correct way, like perpendicular from the wall out. That is one way. Another way to do it is by creating the text with a button here. It's called Autogrid, and there is a little danger in using Autogrid. Autogrid means, and I'll show you, when you have Autogrid on and you have bar and the text, and I just click once, you see when I hold my mouse, it automatically finds the shape, and it will find which way it goes. So when I hold it on this wall, it will create bar here. When I hold it on this wall, it creates the letter here or here or here. So it automatically finds a grid there. The only thing you need is don't forget to turn off the Autogrid, because it's easy to forget it. And then whatever your objects you create when Autogrid is still on, and for example, you're creating a pyramid, then the pyramid is being created on this wall or on this wall or on this wall. So it remembers the Autogrid and finds automatically the surface. It is quite helpful for quick drawings, but not for precise things. So don't forget to turn it off. So now I have a lot of objects here in my scene that I don't need. So let's delete, we can keep the pyramid. So maybe it's a pyramid bar, but the bar signs is a little too much everywhere. So let's keep this sign. And to make, we know when we render it, it will not render. The bar is just a text. It's a 2D shape, so it will not render. Cancel. So we need to somehow turn it into a 3D object, and you can either extrude it, but when you extrude the bar sign, okay, not this much, but maybe an amount of 0.2, no, still too much, 0.1, you will get very sharp edges, and that looks very computer graphic like in the rendering. If you want this, that's fine, but it's much better to use a bevel modifier and give the letters a slight deeply beveled edge, and that helps it to make even more three-dimensional. So instead of extrude, we cannot, an object that already has been extruded cannot be beveled. So bevel is, and extrude as well, you can only extrude shapes. Once it's extruded, it's not a shape anymore, so you can no longer extrude it or sweep it and so on. So all those 4 modifiers are for shapes only. That's why I have to extrude, delete the extrude modifier. So now you can do whatever we did today. So I'm going to place a bevel modifier on it. Wait a second. No, this is too big. See, the values are really big. The height, I'm going to do the extrusion height. 0.1 was the height. No outline. And then level 2, I'm going to do 0.01 and outline minus 0.01. And we'll see how that looks. So, see, this is 0.1, the first extrusion, and the second one is only 0.01, so that is 1 centimeter, and minus 1 is minus 1. So that gives me a 1 centimeter cutaway, and it looks a little too soft, so in this case I'm going to go for 0.005, and the same thing here, minus 0.05, just to give me like half the edge here. And when you render a picture like this, so there it is, my bar sign, the pyramid bar, and when you render it, it just gives you a little bit of reflection here around the edge, and this makes it look much more three-dimensional. Okay, so bevel text is always beveled. Just to show you, there's also a we're gonna keep that. Check out the text element that is under geometry here, and under geometry here is text plus. And when you use the text plus tool, the same thing. You can type whatever you want. You can type bar again. Again, you can choose the font style and so on. You could do that as well. The size also. So we had 1 meter size for the one we had, and now there is something about the materials and so on. And here, not only you can define the text by this tool, it automatically creates an extrusion or a beveling. So both the extrude version can be done with the text or the beveling version. So if we want the same thing, we just have to choose beveling, apply, bevel, and you know what? I'm going to place the text, I'm going to place it on the ground. So if you are like looking down, you also want to make sure that you see the bar. See the bevel with the settings right now, it's totally wrong. And we know the bevel depth needs to be 0.1. That is the height. And then we have the bevel push, I guess, 0.005. Yes, and the offset minus 0.005. No, does that work? So I guess 0.1. Maybe that needs to be 0. So custom. Okay. Can use 1 step, 2 steps. Okay. The extrusion comes from here. So the extrusion, I did this the first time. The extrusion is here, the height, and now the bevel needs to be 0.005 and 0.005. That stays 0. Okay, so that is how I get this edge. So the first one is the height of the extrusion, and the second one is the height of the bevel and how far it is either pushed in or out. In this case, the positive value is pushed in, and if you want to push it out, you can probably, no, it doesn't react. So 0.5. Yeah, no, this is the same thing. So if you go minus here, okay, I personally, as you can imagine, prefer the other version there, but the rest is just the same. It's a different font style, but here I can as well go to modify and change the font style there. Here, Arial, and so on and so on. So here the fonts are the same. Good. That was a quick example. Now let me finish this tutorial by showing you another little example, and this time what I'm going to do, last time it was the Batman logo, this time I'm going to choose another logo that I am creating, and I'm going to do the 20th Century Fox logo. Basically it's just a couple of texts that we extrude, or if you look close, can you see the edge here? We are going to bevel them as well. We're going to check out how we can edit the text, because this is a very, it's based on Helvetica, the font style, but it has been altered. So we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to put some plates in between and see if we can quickly recreate the 20th Century Fox logo. To do this, I'm going to do a quick reset so that all the changes in my and your version are the same. And I'm going to start by creating the text for it, but I'm not going to do it in top view, because it's better to do it in front view than the text is already looking the same way as the logo. So I'm going into front view. I'm going to use the traditional text element here, which is only a 2D text. And I'm going to start with 20. And let me see if I can access Helvetica here, which is the closest to the font style, or if I have to use. Okay, it's not installed here. So let's just do it Arial. Doesn't matter, and it should be a sans serif text, not one with serifs. And I'm going to type 20, and 100 meters may be too much. So it's a quite large logo. So let's make it maybe 10 meters in size. And there it is. But it doesn't matter how tall it is. It just needs to be, work together with the different text elements. So here is 20, and the only thing that you should not do is I need the TH, therefore I'm going to hold my shift key and move a copy over, choose copy, and now I select it, go to modify, and I just change the text to TH. Do not scale the letters with the scale tool. If you need a smaller TH, which we definitely need, you just do it in modify and bring it there. We're going to adjust that a little bit later. Now here's 20th. Also, I'm going to make a copy down here and make the copy text century. Also smaller. And you could check out if you want maybe Arial black is best. Where is Arial black? Maybe the Arial black is better than the regular one. That looks good. Maybe also for the 20, so I can select the 20 and choose a different font style here. Arial black. We leave the T. Actually, it was better before. Let's just do it a regular Arial like this. The TH also stays small, and we need century and another one. Copy down, and I'm going to change that to Fox. Fox, of course, needs to be larger, so the size, and maybe the Fox also has the, not the black, but the standard. No, that's too small. Okay, it stays maybe fat, not black. And there it is. So that is the first thing, just placing the text. Yes, the 20 is definitely too small, so let's also face that and change it to like this, not black. So there it is, and we are ready to give it a certain bevel to make it a three-dimensional object. I'm going to start with 1, and once I have the correct settings for 1, I'm just applying it to all the others. So in the, you have all seen the show opener of 20th Century Fox with the music and the animation. Maybe there's a chance that we see the logo from the back side, so we need this beveled edge not only here but also on the other side. Let me maximize it here. Here's my 20, and I'm going to give it a modifier, and I'm going to use bevel. Okay, so first, you can already start with an outline, and it's 20, so let's try -1. Then give it a height of 20. No. Okay, so that is not good. The first one needs to be, so first one needs to be 1 and how much is 1? No, it's still too much. So 0.1, should have checked out the values, and outline of 0.1. That will go out, yes. So we're going to leave that to 0. And then we extrude it to a certain height. Let's go for 20. That is the size of the whole thing. Let me quickly check. Maybe like less, a little bit less, like 15. And 10. And the second bevel will be done here. So that is second bevel, and that is again 0.1 and minus 0.1. So now we have, you see there's an edge in the back and an edge in the front. That looks good. And now as we have correctly adjusted our bevel, the only thing that I'm a little afraid when I apply the same bevel to the TH, that the large bevel will not look good at the small font style. But let's just try it. Select the TH, also hit bevel. Yeah, it's still okay, maybe a little bit less. So select this one, and instead of 0.1 I use 0.05, and also here instead of 1 I use 0.5 and minus 0.5. Good. Now it's smaller. Again, select the TH, and there's only one thing. Now the TH, if you look at my logo here, the TH is different. It has the T has no the horizontal part, not on the left side, and the H has been lifted up. So in order that we can adjust this, you know, it's still text. It has text elements, and if we want to adjust it just as if it's a normal spline, what we need to do is we need to put a modifier between the text and the bevel, or we could just do a right click and convert to editable spline. In this case, I'm going to choose the version with the modifier between it. So I'm going to give it first a modifier that's called edit spline. That allows you to go into the vertex, the segment level, pull this up and so on. Let's do it. So here's the segment. Select this segment, for example, and move it taller. Select this segment. Oops, I am in a perspective view, and move it like in. Or even better, go in here and select all those points and delete them, because then it's straight down. So this edit spline, if I turn this invisible, the edit spline modifier, I can have the original version here and on. So now with the modifier on, I give it a bevel, and now I have the beveled version of it. So here's the century and bevel, and here's the fox and bevel. And here we are, ready. All we need to do is, and we're not going to spend too much time there, I'm looking from the top now, and I'm going to use a simple box there. So as a box in between them. So let's look from the front. And here is my simple box. Put the box in between 20 and say, we should have just, it's either the 20, the font actually here is the 2 needs to go down a little bit in order to stand on. That is strange. So like this. Then the century moves a little bit to the right and up. Oh, there's 2 boxes actually there. So down here a copy, okay, and a copy, okay, down at the fox. I'm going to adjust the settings soon. Here is this one, and let's do it really quick. Move another copy down and simply scale it. You know, I'm not into scaling a lot, but in this case it's fine just to scale it a bit. Move it up so that they intersect. Take this one down. And then the next one. You can do that all precise if you have all day to work on it. But for us, it's just a quick one. See the O's, they go too far down. Here's another copy. This one is, let's scale it a bit down and scale it this way and so on. Okay, so here we are. Select everything, make it the color orange, and we are ready to wide angle, get closer, wide angle, get closer, and you're ready to animate it, of course, with a camera. But for right here it is, 20th Century Fox. When you render it, you will see those nice little, okay, 1 second, here it is. You can see those nice beveled edges and so on and so on. So that is our little example here using the extruded or beveled text and some simple boxes to recreate the 20th Century Fox logo. I hope you liked it. You got something out of it, already covered a whole hour. Thanks for your patience, and I'll see you in the next video.